Your Humanities Half Hour is brought to you by the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.
Hafidez Antero, welcome to Your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry. It's Valentine's Day, and what better day than today to look at what I consider possibly a true love story from our islands. Our guests today are Bruce Mailman and Maya Kara, residents of Saipan since 1989. Bruce, Maya, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you.
You guys have actually been married since 1981. And I really want to thank you for making time to share, I don't think you would call it expert tips, but maybe lessons learned the hard way. Yeah, to share with us a little bit about your story. Maybe you could start us off with how you met and what were your initial impressions?
I was selling some stuff at the flea market. She was looking for a bargain.
You know, he always says that, but it's really not true. I went. This was the Berkeley Flea Market in California, and it happened every Sunday, and I just always liked to go. And no, I wasn't looking for a bargain, but I was looking for something pretty.
Okay, and how about that? Do you remember that moment when you first saw each other, or first started talking, or what were your first impressions of each other?
You're gonna laugh. When we started talking, we talked for a couple hours about Japanese literature and translation.
Japanese literature and translation?
Since both of us are illiterate in Japanese.
We just, we just recognized immediately that we had a lot in common, because I had always been really interested in the history and culture, and especially art of East Asia, and he had taken some courses at the University of California, and it was one of those pursuits. At that time, this is 1978, Asia wasn't that popular a subject for most Americans, but for me, it was just something that from the age of 14 I just focused in on. And so, but I didn't share it with anybody because it just wasn't something that people did. It was just a very unusual interest. So when we started talking along those lines, it was just such a revelation that here was another person who was, attracted in a very passionate way to the same thing that I found so attractive.
It seems that your relationship blossomed quite quickly. You kind of became committed to each other, or committed to a serious relationship quickly. What was it that made you feel like this is a person I want to make a commitment to?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that probably happened because we specifically weren't going to commit to anything. So nothing was loaded with that. Oh, let's be anxious. Let's worry. Is this going to go somewhere? Oh dear, am I making a mistake? Oh, is she making a mistake? What are we going to do? None of that stuff. We're going to play.
We both had histories. We were in our early 30s, and so we had past relationships that had gone bad. And we had both independently pretty much decided that we just were going to find the one. And so when we met and we started being together, it didn't need to go anywhere. We just were going to have fun because we had kind of given up.
And because it wasn't loaded with any worries about consequences snuck up on us very easily, no problem.
Yeah.
So you met actually in 1978, got married in 1981, and a lot of people say the first year of marriage is the hardest. Was that true for you?
Absolutely not.
No.
I mean, we kind of flowed seamlessly from a relationship where we were spending all of our free time with each other anyway. So we decided we might as well move in, and got tired of driving between his place and my place. And then after we'd lived together for a while, it just seemed like, the natural place to go was to get married,
Maya, you were kind of mentioning before we started the interview about how there don't seem to be a lot of resources out there you found that kind of give tips on how to have a healthy marriage. They kind of give a lot of advice on how to help a broken marriage or a struggling marriage, but did you have to make adjustments or any major adjustments in becoming one, shall we say, or in being married? How have you guys addressed your differences, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, before we get there, we both had ideas about how to behave. And we very quickly agreed. There's some very, very simple rules. It's okay to fight as long as you don't say things you can't ever take back. It's best to be completely honest. Jealousy is a waste of time. Basically, don't go to sleep mad at each other.
Yeah, we never ever, that's like an ironclad rule. If it takes till 4 o'clock in the morning to work through whatever it is, you stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning, because I don't want to go to bed with differences unresolved. It's just really bad. It's a way to get, hurts get sort of pushed down, and then they fester.
And the other thing is trust. And trust is probably the bedrock. If you decide you trust somebody, it's really destructive to sit around being paranoid, or I think probably the word's neurotic. Oh, is this the truth? Am I being told the truth? Is something happening I'm not aware of? I mean, all those kind of worries. And again, they're a waste of emotional energy if you trust somebody. And if you don't, well, there are ways to deal with that too, but why torture yourself?
It almost seems like you need to, speaking about trust, you need to know before you make that commitment that this is somebody that you feel that you can trust, because it would be more difficult to build that after if you didn't trust them in the beginning.
Well, I very early on saw something in Maya's facial expressions, behavior, general attitude, that said, yeah, this is a person you can trust. Absolutely. And I've never had any reason to feel otherwise.
Same here. I don't remember there being like a moment when I decided, okay, yes, this is it. I'm going forward with this relationship. It just all flowed very, very naturally, and this business about how hard it is and how much work you have to put into, we never really understood. I mean, there were things in our lives that came up that were very difficult, but they didn't come from inside. They came from outside things. I mean, life brings you difficulties to get through, but it didn't come from inside.
Do you feel there was anything modeled by either your parents or other people you saw that you felt like, okay, I want to adopt that in my marriage, or like, okay, I need to make sure that I don't bring that into my marriage?
Well, with regard to my parents, it was don't ever do any of those things.
Yeah, me too.
What do you mean?
My parents had a terrible marriage.
My mother was divorced twice. First when I was 4, and Next when I was 21, and in many ways a remarkable woman, but relationships with men was not one of her talents.
She finally found the right one when she was 79.
78.
78. And they spent their next 16 years together. No, he was the same age.
Well, that's kind of encouraging in a way to know that, even if we didn't grow up with great role models, that we can still have something beautiful in our own lives.
Well, you know what to avoid.
Yeah.
Look, we're not Pollyannas. We'd both been in relationships, there's that R word, that were difficult.
Yeah. Very.
And to varying degrees. And some of those people I'm still friendly with, and some of them I'm not. Maya could say the same thing. I don't want to put words in your mouth, though.
Not really.
Huh?
I love it. Is that how you normally disagree?
How did we just disagree? What's unusual?
I said I'm friends with some of those people, and well.
And I said I'm not.
Most of them aren't with us
We
anymore.
scare people a lot because we kind of squabble verbally. We fence verbally, and it makes people really nervous.
We're not afraid to speak very bluntly and
that's
disagree.
Another measure of trust, Mm-hmm. It's okay to disagree. It doesn't affect the relationship. It doesn't.
I guess it also kind of depends on how you disagree, like, how you express your disagreement.
Well, to disagree never says anything bad about the other person. I think that might be the thing that a lot of people make the mistake. They disagree, and then they've got to win, and they've got to sort of winning means putting the other person down.
Well, and there's couples that, and I'm not really sure how this happens, but people in relationship that have like wide difference of opinion in really basic things like politics or religion. And I think that would be really, really hard to get over. I'm not sure how I would do that. I mean, it baffles me how you ever choose a partner who's that different from you. Because I think that is one of the foundational elements of our relationship, is that we really think about things very similarly, even though we were born and raised in totally different countries, cultures,
Political
languages,
systems.
everything. But we ended up somehow with a view of the world that's amazingly congruent.
One of the things people often say marks a good relationship is that the other person makes you a better person. Would you agree with that? And if so, how would you say the other person makes you?
Yeah, I think you have a much more generous spirit than I do. I'd be ashamed not to try to match that standard.
I don't know. I never thought of that. It's an interesting question.
Well, we're chatting today with Bruce Mailman and Maya Kara on this Valentine's Day about their relationship, married since 1981, and we'll be back with more after this break.
Did you know that the Northern Marianas Humanities Council is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year? Si Auntie Chayla Nesti. You know, we eat healthy fruits and vegetables for a healthy body, no? Well, the humanities are like healthy food for our soul. Goffmani, Ed Hitler. Adahi, don't forget your daily dose of the humanities this year. Go to their Facebook or their website. In Northern Marianas Humanities Council. Atcha Bebe.
Welcome back to Your Humanities Half Hour. We're chatting with Bruce Mailman and Maya Kara, together since 1978, married since 1981, and residents of Saipan since 1989. That's a long time, guys. You actually started your family here in Saipan. Can you share with us that story?
A rather wise friend of ours once said, "It doesn't matter where children come from." And ours came to us.
We have two children. They're both adopted. Our daughter is 27 and our son is 24. And they are, our daughter is 100% Filipino descent, and our son is half Chamorro, half Filipino descent.
And there's another girl that's like a daughter. So, you know, we sort of, we adopt everything in sight. People, kids, dogs, cats, geckos.
Yeah, we're very adopted.
And speaking of cats, if our listeners hear any purring in the background, that would be Louie has joined the interview. And thank you so much for having me at your home today for this interview. And yes, thank you, Louie. So your parenting style, do you feel you were in agreement on parenting style, or what advice would you give other parents maybe who are not on the same page?
Well, let me just back up a little.
Sure.
So we adopted our daughter in 1992.
Well, actually, Maya helped her get born.
So we had been married for 11 years without children. And I had some infertility problems. I had multiple medical procedures. We had in vitro fertilization at a time when that was a fairly new technology. And I was going through IVF while I was in law school, which was, if I think about it now, insanity. Anyway, that was not successful, and I finally said, you know, I'm done. I'm not doing any more medical intervention here. If the universe wants us to have a child, the child will come. And so we ended up moving to Saipan because of a job offer for me. And about a couple of years after that, a friend came to me who was a social worker and said, "Somebody just offered me a baby. Are you interested?"
Wow.
So that's how our daughter came to us. Okay.
Maya came right to me and she said, I was in court and she was waiting outside the court when I came out, and she looked at me, she blurts out, "There's a baby in the basket on the doorstep. What do we do?"
And you said?
Well, let's go meet the basket.
So we met the mother when she was 7 months pregnant, and we kind of took care of her for the next 2 months.
Very good person.
So anyway, that was our first child, and she was sort of Velcroed to me. It was very, very bonded. And so there was this beauty salon that I went to on a regular basis, and when I was having stuff done, like facial, she would be sitting on my chest.
Oh, wow.
You know. And so there was a woman working there who was pregnant, and I guess she had a chance to watch the interaction between myself and my daughter, and she came to me and she said, "Would you be interested in adopting another child?" And I said, "Well, let us think about it." And that's how our son came to us. We met the mothers when they were pregnant, and the babies came home with us from the hospital.
Yeah. Well, Maya was present for both births.
Yeah.
I was nearby when our daughter was born. I had a family emergency that called me to California when our son was born.
So parenting style, I don't know. I consider my parenting style benign neglect.
Maya.
Our daughter is much kinder. She says, "You know, I look at all these other people, you know, and when I learned how other families were, you allowed me so much freedom," she says.
Yeah. And
Well,
when she went off to college at the University of San Francisco, one of the first phone calls that we had with her,
a couple weeks after.
yeah, she said, Mom, Dad, I don't understand. All the people I meet here, they hate their family. Why do they hate their family? I love my family.
And then she says, their parents come up and take them to dinner on the weekends and do their laundry for them, and they hate them.
So it sounds like you definitely did something right there. And now you're grandparents. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about juggling career with maintaining a healthy relationship? How have you guys,
Oh, with each other?
yeah. How does career play into?
Well, we're really fortunate, I think, in having the same profession, because I can't imagine working all day and coming home to a spouse who has no idea what I do all day. Because you can't really share that with someone who doesn't know.
Well, and we're not jealous of each other's jobs. I mean, it's not.
I've never been competitive.
We started our firm 15 years ago, but before that, Maya was working. Sometimes there were crunches, for example, during the Second Constitutional Convention, where she'd get home at 4 a.m, take a shower, and head off back to work. And at that point, our daughter was barely 3. So, that didn't stress us out with each other, though. That was simply work stress. It's, I don't know, it's never been an issue.
And, we were very fortunate because Saipan has affordable child care.
Yeah.
And, our counterparts in the States had a much harder juggle. We had live-in housekeepers, babysitters, and so I knew my children were taken care of if I wasn't here. I also spent 9 years working for the legislature, which is like 5 minutes by car from my home. So if there was any kind of emergency, most of the time, I could be here in 5 minutes, And so that was really helpful, not having a long commute and having reliable childcare. But as far as we didn't compete, it was actually very useful because I worked for the government for 17 years and he was in the private sector.
We used to say she works for the government, I sue the government, but I haven't sued the government in a couple decades.
Looking back, what would you say is the most beautiful thing about your relationship, if I could ask you both?
We're best friends.
Yeah, it's exactly what I would have said.
And you're actually holding her hand right now. You've reached out to hold her hand when I asked that question.
Yeah. We're best friends, so we have these long conversations, and whether they're joking or silly or philosophical, it's all just play. And we play a lot.
Yeah. Could you offer any experienced advice to other couples to grow their relationship?
Well, as the song, and before that, what was his name, Meher Baba said, don't worry, be happy. Now, that sounds glib,
Right.
but the fact is, going back to what we said earlier, if you trust someone, and if you like who they are, then you look for ways to enjoy things together.
And I don't know how you create trust if there isn't. I mean, I wanted to say several times during this interview, if you don't trust your partner, you probably shouldn't be together, and that's probably a little harsh. But I really don't know if you have that worm, in your heart that is jealous or insecure or worried about, whether your partner is being honest with you. I really don't know how you get over that. I mean, that's sort of like a mental health question.
Yeah, and it might, I mean, your partner may not even be doing anything to be untrustworthy.
Right.
It may be something inside yourself
Right.
that just makes it difficult for you to trust somebody.
I mean,
Yeah.
what we do, what I do these days in particular, because Maya's been staying home during the pandemic, when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm having our initial conversations and follow-up conversations, and one thing and another, I'm always assessing, you know. The initial assessment, are these people telling me a story that makes sense? Do we trust this? And so I'm constantly trying to make sure that we don't make a mistake, but that investigative spirit does not bleed over into our life together.
Interesting.
I mean, Bruce has never, ever given me a reason to question my trust. Never. Not for a second.
That's mutual.
And that's a very safe place to be
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Yeah. I remember when we first met, neither of us had really fixed jobs. Maya was in school, and I had just come back from an extended trip to Spain and North Africa, and I had a pickup truck, and I did various things with it, and she was helping me one day. Someone was paying us to move a little furniture, and we had this long couch that needed to be fitted out a funny stairway, and we were disagreeing, and we were buttering back and forth, and the woman who'd hired us was sort of, her face, she looked aghast, and she said, are you two having issues?
No, having discussions.
Discussions, that was it.
discussions,
Yeah, having discussions. And we had to put the couch down, we were laughing so hard. And that really shocked her. Then she got to laugh a little too. But, we're not afraid to talk. We never have been.
Well, we've been chatting today with Bruce Mailman and Maya Kara about their love story. Any final thoughts before we go?
I don't know. People treat us as if we're unusual. That may or may not be so, but I don't see why it has to be so. As I said, what rules we have are really simple. They work.
Thank you both so much. And happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you for having us. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
This has been your Humanities Half Hour. I'm Catherine Perry.
This program was supported by a We the People grant awarded to the Northern Marianas Humanities Council from the National Endowment for the Humanities. Any views, findings, conclusions, or recommendations expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily represent those of the National Endowment for the Humanities or the Northern Marianas Humanities Council.